Welcome back to the Not Yet Adults podcast. This, of course, is a podcast starring Collin Geffrey and myself, Eric Zayas, as we navigate the treacherous road from childhood towards adulthood.
Towards death, eventually.
Eventually. That's...
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that got dark real fast.
Okay, I'm gonna get all metaphysical for a second here.
Oh, boy.
Think about it. If we're on this road, right?
Yes.
And birth is the start of the road.
Okay.
And adulthood is like the twilight years or the golden years of the road. And then death. Is death like you go off a cliff, or is death like a separate road, or like?
Oh, I think it depends. In this metaphor, I think if it's sudden and unexpected, it would be like driving off a cliff. But if it's like you're old and you're in deathbed, you've got your family around you and you're ready, that would be that'll be like making it all the way around this metaphysical world this road is on, and then coming back home and like parking in the driveway.
Okay, I like that. As opposed to just go off 90 miles an hour a cliff and it is this giant sinkhole.
Eventually we'll talk about death because that's actually an interesting topic, but today's topic is actually not about death.
And not nearly as interesting either. It's very boring. It might put people to sleep, some people might say.
I thought you were serious about it being boring, but it was just a segue because I was about to say, although we have some interesting topics, I was like, why are you saying it's boring? I was actually really excited for this topic.
No,
but that's a good...
Easily the worst topic we've ever... No, I'm just kidding.
That's a good one.
Yeah, sleep. We want to talk about sleep this week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so...
Let's do it. Okay.
So this is... Initially, because we had the running joke of I had the list of topics on my phone that I wanted to do, and Eric had his. And every time we talked about my list, it was always really depressing, dark stuff.
Real sad stuff.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm starting from square one. I'm deleting the list, and I'm starting a new one. And I only have like 2 or 3 on there, but we were talking about it, and I threw sleep out there. And initially I was like, this is kind of a boring thing. Like, no one wants to talk about sleep. And then we started brainstorming, and I was like, oh, this is actually a really interesting topic.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, if you just say sleep, you think, well, what can you even say about that? But there's a lot of, like, subtopics, and let's just jump into it.
Let's do it, man. Let's take a dive. So, Eric, talk to me. Let's just start real broad. How do you sleep on an average daily, weekly basis? How do you think you get pretty good sleep, or not so much, or where do you fall?
Well, I'm fortunate enough to have good sleep. I'm not insomniac. I think I was to some extent when I was younger, because when I was younger, I didn't really have like a structured sleep schedule. I mean, my parents tried to get a structured sleep schedule on me so I wouldn't wake up tired for school, but inevitably I always stayed up playing video games and got very little sleep many nights, and so I'd wake up really tired for class, and it was really bad. And like the days that I didn't have school, like the weekends, I would stay up super late and then go to sleep and then wake up at like noon or past noon. And as an adult, I just can't do that. I can't. Even the days I have off, I always wake up like 9 a.m. or earlier because I get sense of anxiety sleeping in, because I think like I'm just wasting the day. So I'm lucky enough to like be kind of person where I don't go to sleep immediately, but like I don't stay up with my like laying in bed with my eyes open as much as I used to, because I've gotten pretty good rhythm. And I think
that idea. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think like keeping to the like waking up at least by 9 a.m. on the days I have off keeps me on that schedule, and then keeps me from like makes my sleep management work.
And it stops you from having to course correct going into the week, because like when we were kids, and like you'd have a friend like spend the night on Saturday or whatever, and you guys would stay up till way too late playing video games. Yeah. And then your Sunday's a mess. But at least for me, it's always that second day when you pull like an all-nighter or whatever. It's the second day that you feel it the most. And so going into that Monday at school, you're just dead. You're like, you can't even keep your eyes open. And so, like you mentioned, staying on that consistent schedule, maybe you're not up late partying or playing video games anymore, but I think it's making you more successful overall.
Absolutely. So, what about you, Colin? How do you sleep?
Yeah, I'm someone who has, I'd say, slept less and less soundly as I've gotten older. My mom and her side of the family has a lot of like sleep issues and anxiety issues and that sort of thing, and I'm sure I've inherited that in some capacity. And so I remember as a kid sleeping really well and just sleeping sound through the night. I'd sleep for a really long time and be like hard to wake me up. Like I was like a very sound sleeper. And around, I'm going to say probably 13 or 14, there was kind of the shift. I don't really know what caused it, but it was the sort of thing where I became a very light sleeper. Like if like a phone would buzz or someone would even just walk into the room, not open a door, but just like walk into the room, like when I was sleeping in a family room at a friend's place or something, I would just like bolt upright. Like that was it. And I don't know what caused that, but ever since then I've had like a hard time getting to sleep, and I often wake up a few times over the course of the night. And sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. This past summer actually was probably the best my sleep schedule has been in a long time. I was going to bed at like 10 or 11, and I was waking up at 6 or 6:30 without an alarm every single day. I was just up at the right time. And that was awesome. But what kind of prompted me wanting to talk about this topic a little bit is lately my sleep schedule has been crap. It's been absolutely terrible.
Oh, man.
Which is so frustrating because, like you said, it's that guilt of sleeping in. Where I'm at is I've been working longer shifts at work. So I was working consistently 3 to 7 p.m., which is a short 4-hour shift. Lately, I've been working 3 to midnight, which is a 9-hour shift. And when I work 3 to midnight, I'm not home till like 12:45, 1-ish. And then I'm not asleep till like, if I'm asleep by 2:30, that's honestly an early night these days. And it's just because of my work schedule. There's not much I can do about that. But then when I have to wake up at 9 or 10, because I'm exhausted if I don't get that much sleep, I feel like I've wasted the morning because now suddenly I'm waking up at 10 a.m., you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those things where I know it's my work schedule's fault, and I know there's not really that much I can do about it, but it's still frustrating because I still want to wake up at a quote-unquote normal hour. And so my sleep schedule keeps, like, shifting. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to force it to course correct. I'm going to wake up really early this morning, and then I just can't because then I'll have, like, 4 hours of sleep or whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy difficult to keep a consistent sleep schedule when your, like, work schedule is inconsistent because work, it's kind of where we are right now. Work is where we base our lives around because we're trying to find work and, work is not our lives, but it's what gives us money to live our lives, so like when you have a job that where the hours are kind of all over the place, it affects sort of everything else you do, not just with sleep but also with scheduling time for friends and everything.
Right. Well, and you more than me because you're moved out already, but we're both in a place also where, like, because we're just entering the world of work, like, we don't have a whole lot of savings or anything to fall back on. So, like, our work is kind of the center pillar of our life because that kind of is the thing that fuels everything else around us. As opposed to maybe you get older, you have a little bit more autonomy and a little bit more income so that, it's not going to all fall apart if you have to take time off of work. But right now, that's, like, the gas in the machine keeping us going.
100%.
We don't really have anything to fall back on. So... And then, dude, like, it makes me think. My dad, he worked for the railway for a few years. This was years back. But he worked the graveyard shift. So he'd work 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I don't even know how people do things like that. Like, you don't even feel like a member of society anymore. Like, you wake up when it's dark out and you don't see anyone. And then you commute to work and you work all through the night. And then just around the time that the sun starts coming up, you go to sleep. Like, how bizarre is that?
Yeah, I'm sure it's nice if you, like, don't like people. Like, if you're one of those people that's like, I'm fine with, like, being away from people for long periods of time. But
right.
And to an extent, I get that because I'm a pretty social person. But sometimes I do really like my alone time. But also, I just couldn't bear having to change my sleep schedule in a permanent way that drastically.
Sure. Yeah, I don't even know how people would do that. Because I am having enough trouble just because really my sleep schedule, I say it's trash, but really it's just been pushed 2 or 3 hours. Like I go to bed 2 or 3 hours later and I wake up 2 to 3 hours later. So it's not, broken beyond repair, but even just that small change to me feels ridiculous. So changing to like essentially being nocturnal, I have no idea how people do that.
Something I was curious about when you brought up sleep is when you wrote in the topics dreams.
Yeah.
I can never remember or very rarely remember my dreams. And I was wondering if you remember them and like what kind of dreams you have.
So it was similar with what I was saying before of how like I used to sleep really well, and as I've gotten older, it's been less and less so. I used to dream all the time when I was a kid. I would dream like I remember every single night, and then I'd wake up and I'd talk with my mom about it, and she would like have a dream journal and stuff too. So that was like something we did in the mornings, just compared dreams. And very rarely now will I mean, they say you always have dreams, just a question of whether or not you remember them. Very rarely do I actually remember a dream I had. And I've heard that people who sleep very deeply don't have dreams because the dreams is still like your mind being somewhat active. And I've also heard that if you're on an irregular or an unhealthy sleep schedule, it's harder to have dreams because you're not drifting in and out of the different cycles of sleep as fluidly. So yeah, I don't know. I personally don't. I don't know. Dreams are weird, man. It's one of those things where like the harder you try to remember it, the faster it slips away.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's so frustrating.
I remember vividly like nowadays when I wake up I don't even think about the dream. I just like let it go. But when I was younger and I had the interesting dream, then I'm like, oh man, I don't want this to slip away. It's like holding a handful of sand and watching it slip between your fingers, knowing that like the tighter you squeeze, the quicker it's just gonna escape.
Also knowing that it's coarse and rough and irritating and it gets everywhere.
Get those prequel memes out of here.
Sorry,
we're talking about sleep. We're not talking about Anakin Skywalker.
Well, let me tell you. You want to tell me one thing that puts me to sleep? It's Attack of the Clones. Gee whiz, is that a flip?
Oh my god.
But anyways, yeah, and I mean it's interesting because like you, at least for me with dreams, I won't often remember the content. I'll just remember the feeling it left me with.
Yeah.
And so like I'll wake up and I'll have this feeling and I don't really know why. I'm sure it's like has something to do with a dream I had when I was asleep. But the harder I try to remember, like you said, it's like sand. It just falls through your fingers. And then yeah, that's really frustrating. But no, I mean dreams are supposedly our subconscious's way of working out things that we can't or had only started to think about when we were awake. And so I'm sure they're very important. But yeah, I can't say they have much of a place in my life these days. So
I do miss having the conversations in the morning where like the comparing dreams, because my mom still has vivid dreams and she'll occasionally like when I lived with her she would like tell me about them like, oh, I had this dream and you were in it and like your sister was in it and this is what happened and it was weird and but like felt normal and kind of surreal, and sure. Now it's like when she has a specific dream she'll like text us about it. But yeah,
and you like sound like a crazy person because saying that in text, like, what in the world are you talking about?
I mean, dreams are crazy. Like, oftentimes the dreams I had would be primarily like, I mean, the characters would be myself and like friends and family, and we'd either be like ourselves in like weird situations, or they'd all be like playing different characters, almost like a play. You know what I mean? Like, a friend will be like, it'll look like my friend, but it'll be a different character. Right. If that makes sense. And
also if you think about it, like because dreams are essentially just your brain going wild, like it's almost like freeform thought.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to follow a traditional narrative structure or any sort of real sequence of events. It's just kind of a bunch of things happening at once. And so like you'll even if you remember a dream, you'll try and explain it and you're like, I don't really get how to explain this because it's not like telling a story. It doesn't read that way. You know what I mean?
That's one thing I remember when I had like dreams all the time as a kid, that I would it'd be almost like I had multiple different dreams in the same dream. Like the story of the dream would drastically change, and I can't remember specifically what changed it or what triggered the change from like me being like on the road through the forest to suddenly being like in the classroom with like no clothes on and just underwear or something like that. You know, but like each change would have its own significant story, and sometimes I wake up and think like, oh, were those dreams from different nights or the dreams from the same night, and I'm just like remembering them so vividly, each one in particular, that it seems like each one could be a dream of itself. And it felt like they went on for like hours, days even, and then you wake up and
oh my god, like, the passage of time is so bizarre.
Yeah because you really get into the world of like the dream, and then you wake up and heck, it could be like you took a nap for like half an hour, but it felt like
it felt like a week in the dream. Yeah, it's so strange. The one dream, I don't remember them often, but the one I have more than anything else, and it's so cliche and I'm so sick of it, and the fact that I'm having it now probably means I'm going to be having it for the rest of my life, but it's that it's towards the end of a semester and there was one class I just forgot to go to, and it's the last credit I need before graduating.
No, that's the worst, dude.
And it's like, okay, now we're at finals and I completely forgot about this class all semester. Which is funny because when I was in community college, I did something similar. I didn't forget about the class, but the professor was like, you need to take There's no homework. There's no participation. You need to take these 10 quizzes. And once you finish these 10 quizzes, you're done with the class. And so I didn't go all semester. I waited till the last week, and then I showed up and I took all 10 quizzes in 2 days. And that feeling is like how the dream is, except instead of planning to do that, you just completely spaced. And then you're like, I didn't learn anything I need to for this class. I'm going to fail, and I'm never going to get out of college. And I'm going to be here forever. And it's just like that snowball effect, you know?
That's that's a stress thing like that. I would love to read more about dreams and what they mean. And because it really feels like the dreams that bring you back to like stressful moments, but like an exaggerated version, it probably means you have like some stress in your normal life, like deadline related stress. At least that's what it like feels like.
It's like manifesting in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah. So, Eric, we talked about dreams. We talked about how we used to sleep versus how we sleep now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk like get into the nitty gritty about like how we sleep, not in terms of the quality, but like actually the environment of like what the room's like, if you have music on, if you don't have music on, how bright or dark it is in the room, stuff like that. Walk me through. Do you have any rituals or pro tips for folks out there?
Let me tell you, I'm a no music during sleep guy. I don't like any noise.
Wow.
And it makes it strange when I'm like spend the night at a friend's house and they have like some music on as white noise, because I'm just like, I don't want anything to focus on. Like if I'm thinking while I'm laying down, I don't go to sleep. I have to like stop my brain, turn off, be like, okay, don't think about anything. And it's really hard sometimes. But when music's playing, I think about the song. I'm listening to the song because I'm listening intently. My brain's still turned on and not going to sleep. But yeah, I had that. I used to have a humidifier because when I first moved into this new place, there was something wrong with the heating, and it was like very dry in my room, and I would wake up with like a sore throat. And like,
that's not good.
This is working out. But then I got the humidifier. As soon as I started using the humidifier, the heat went normal. And I didn't even need it. But yeah, temperature plays a huge part in like how well I can sleep. Like, I'd rather have it being too cold than too hot because I can warm myself up with the blankets.
Right.
So like sleeping during the summertime is really, even though I prefer, as far as seasons go, I think we talked about this before in a previous episode, I prefer warmer seasons to colder seasons.
Right.
But when it comes to sleeping, I'd rather be in a place where it's too cold than too hot, because I find it much easier to warm myself up than cool myself off. Like just like when it's too hot in the summertime and trying to sleep, I just take the blankets off and maybe like remove some clothing, but it's still like, this is just exhausting.
When it's too hot, you're tossing and turning and flipping over the pillow, and yeah, it's rough.
Flipping over the pillow to get to the cold side, then your head warms that up, then flipping to the other side, and your head warms that up, and then you flip it again, and it's like, oh, this side's still warm. Well, I guess I'll die.
Not to mention you're doing this the whole time instead of sleeping.
Like, yes.
It's keeping you awake, having to manually rotate your pillow.
Oh boy.
You mentioned the waking up with your throat hurting thing because it was too hot in your room. Mm-hmm. That happened to me, I want to say like a week and a half ago. I left my heater on because it was really cold. And so I turned my heater on. It's like this dish metal heater. And I had it pointed at my bed just to quote unquote warm up my bed for a few minutes, and then I'd shut it off and fall asleep. And of course I fall asleep with the heater on. And I wake up and it's probably 80 degrees in my room.
Oh my God.
I'm just like, I feel like I'm in like a swamp. This is awful. But yeah, that's rough, man. That's never fun.
You felt like Shrek.
Oh God. And then Shrek came out of my closet and I was like, what are you doing here? This is weird. And then the rest,
Are you sure that wasn't still the dream?
No, that was a repressed memory, actually.
Oh boy. That's one thing I see in movies that seems like, I've never experienced it, but I see it in movies and TV shows. It's like a trope, and it sounds like a nightmare where you wake up and everything's normal, and then something weird happens and you realize you're still in the dream, and then you wake up again. Like
that's some Inception level stuff. Yeah. I can't deal with that. That's too much.
I don't know if that's something that I'm sure that happens to some people. It's never happened to me, but I never want to be in that situation because that's like a nightmare. Like I just want to know when I'm awake.
Right. Yeah, that's like some psychological warfare stuff of like we're not going to tell you what's real and what isn't. You're just going to have to sift through it. Like that's next level.
Yeah, man. Something else I wanted to talk about, and this is where we take this conversation and make it a little more personal. Mm-hmm. Because something like most of the time I'm in the bed by myself, and like it's how I sleep is like it's not going to bother anyone. and I'm a very like I can be sort of a twitchy person.
You can sprawl out and kick the covers off, and no one cares.
Exactly, and no one bothers me. But occasionally, because I'm dating, sometimes I'll have a lady over, or sometimes I'll be at a lady's place, and then you have to sleep in an environment where you're not alone. You're sharing the bed with someone, and how you sleep and how they sleep, you have to make it work.
Right.
And it's a unique experience. How have you? What's your experience with this kind of thing?
So not much. I haven't like properly dated someone in like over a year. And so that's not something as an adult I've experienced a little bit when I was in high school, but not a whole lot. I again am a light sleeper, and so if my phone buzzes or if honest to God, sometimes like if Netflix stops playing, I'll wake up. And so sleeping next to someone, the little bit that I have done that hasn't been a good experience for me because I'm just there. I'm just awake. I can't relax enough to go to sleep. Which probably bodes poorly for my future romantic life. Because that's just something I think I'm going to have a really hard time adapting to, if ever. I don't know, man. It's hard because they're not even in a sexual way, but there is that feeling of like, oh, we're close together. We want to be like intimate. We want to be just kind of hold each other. But then there's also like, I just need to go to sleep. Like there's a difference between like wanting to be close and literally just needing to fall asleep. And that can be hard to be like, okay, there's cuddle time and then there's sleepy time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's just like also functionally difficult sometimes because I mean, when I was younger, before I like really started dating, when I was going to school, like I didn't really start dating until like late college. So junior high and high school, I would just like imagine what it would be like to be laying next to someone, and I thought like cuddling, you know, even though it's not very, like, it's not something like guys typically think about. Like when I thought about cuddling, I thought like, oh, that sounds like it'd be the greatest thing ever. You know, it'd be nice, warm. And now that I'm adult, and that's something I do sometimes. It's nice, but like there's no real comfortable way to do it. Like no position you can be in works because any position, like either you or the other person or both your arms are like, you know, have some weight on it and you're losing blood flow to that arm.
Yeah.
Or like someone's hair is in someone's face. And like that's nice for a little bit, but like when you're actually trying to get to sleep at some point, like as unromantic as it sounds, like you have to detach and be like, okay, I'm gonna lay over here, you lay over there.
No, absolutely.
And because I gotta wake up early in the morning, and also it's a temperature thing. Like your body warmth, like if it's, you know, if you're camping and it's freezing, body warmth is a necessity. But when it's you have a space heater and the room's already at a comfortable temperature, body warmth's just gonna bring it to the uncomfortable level.
One of my first, even vaguely like dating or relationship memories is I was in middle school and I was quote unquote dating a girl, which what the heck does that mean when you're like 12 or 13?
Yeah.
But we went to the movies and I did like the, you know, like the thing, like the arm around the back of the seat thing. And so we were like cuddling in the movie theaters and I was like, oh, this is not nearly as comfortable or as glamorous as any movie I've ever seen has made it. And then as we're walking out, her mom, who had been sitting further up in the theater, she was like our chaperone, she like pulled me aside. She's like, I don't ever want to see you do that again. And I was just like, whoa, I'm way too young for this. This is not cool.
Ooh.
But yeah, that's what I was like. I'm gonna take a break from this.
An arm around the shoulder thing.
And that's when I was like, this is not for me. This is way too much drama for my life. I'm not cool with this. But again, it's one of those things that it always, not always, but often looks more comfortable and enjoyable than it often is. And sometimes you just got to go to sleep, man. Sometimes you just got to roll over and just feel like you can sit on your phone, but I need a solid 6 hours or I'm going to be a zombie tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
I feel you.
Yeah. So kind of the last thing we had in our sort of run a show here, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but sort of this idea of what happens when your sleep schedule sort of goes off the rails. When you know, you're trying to course correct it just seems to be slipping more and more, and you're going to bed later and you're staying up later, so you're falling asleep and then waking up later, and suddenly your schedule keeps kind of nudging further and further down the line. Talk to me about that. Is there any times in your life where that has been a big issue for you, or any effects that's had, maybe directly or indirectly, on your life?
Yeah, when I was younger, it would happen a lot, and it still happens occasionally now because nowadays the way that takes form is if I'm like hanging out with friends and because the friends I have, they can stay up real late and it doesn't bother them. For me, I start getting tired like around like 12 or 1, and like, but they still want to party till like 3 a.m. And even if I don't have anything to do in the morning, like, it's a struggle. And also, if I do have something to do in the morning, then there's that stress. Like, I'm sure everyone's had this situation where you go to bed way too late, and you get to the point where you're like, I got to get up at like 6 a.m. and it's like 2 a.m.
And it's always that math you're doing in your head. Like,
yes.
If I fall asleep right now and I sleep into the last possible minute, I'll get 4.5 hours. Yeah.
I used to do that. I used to like look at my phone and be like, okay, what time is it? What time do I have to wake up? Let me do the math. Oh God. And then the stress would keep me up a little bit longer. So
oh my God. Yeah.
Now I do this thing where I figure out my work schedule for the week. I set my like alarms, ahead of time. And all I have to do is when I go to bed is make sure my volume is on my phone. Although the way my alarm works, even if all my different types of volumes, like call volume and media volume, are all down, when the alarm goes off, it'll still make noise because the alarm app knows, like, no matter how, if this person has their phone muted, they set an alarm so they want it to ring. So I guess making sure the volume on is unnecessary.
I remember in college, it was always that thing of like, I'd have other stuff I was working on or I was procrastinating, and then suddenly it's 2 or 3 in the morning and I still have like an hour and a half of homework to do.
Ugh.
And I'm like, okay, I can do it right now, and I'll go to bed at 3:30, and then I'll have to wake up at 8, so that's be 5.5 hours. Or I can go to sleep right now because sleep's more important, wake up at 7, and then just hurry and finish the homework just before that. And of course, anytime that has entered the conversation, you've lost. That's it. Because then you're going to go to sleep and you're going to wake up and you're not going to want to do it when you wake up.
Yes.
So
like, so many times I would, like, if we're talking about schoolwork, like, I would always be like, okay, I'm going to move, I'm going to set my schedule so that I'm going to do homework at this time. So I can do fun stuff now. And the time I set it to is like way late or way early. I'm going to get to that point. I'm like, what was I thinking? I'm not going to do it.
You're burnout.
I can't.
Done.
I'm either tired or it's like way too early and I got to get focused on getting ready. And it got to the point where I'm like, in the present, when I was thinking like, oh, I'll just move it to another time, I had to remember like, hey, Eric, remember, if you move this to a certain time where you're going to be tired or it's going to be too early, you're not going to do it. So don't shoot yourself in the foot.
And then that little demon on your shoulder is like, you're not going to be productive right now anyway because you're so tired. You should just go to sleep and do it tomorrow. And you never do it tomorrow. It never happens. It's like when you're like sick the day of a test, so you give yourself another day to study. And you just never do it. It just doesn't happen.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's rough.
Memories.
Oh, memories. It's kind of probably borderline unhealthy how much we still talk about school, given the fact that we've graduated. But yeah, I don't know. There's probably something there. Well, Eric, we're clocking in just under how long a usually episode is, but I feel like we've kind of naturally hit a good ending point. Is there anything sort of a feather in the cap or a takeaway you want to give people about sleep or anything we've talked about today?
I mean, to the people who listen to this and take our advice, first of all, good luck because we don't always give good advice. But second of all, if you're a person that you find yourself not getting a lot of sleep, because you're staying up late, procrastinating, just know that like sleep's important, man. You gotta like,
yeah.
But even if you got like you want to play like another game of PUBG or whatever, or you have like one more chapter in a book to read, like just put that stuff aside and focus on getting. You don't even have to get a full 8 hours. Just getting like 6 to 7 hours of good sleep.
Yeah,
that's all you need. And like
it's
the more sleep you get, the more productive you can be the next day.
And it's so cliche, but like truthfully, a good sleep will make every single other aspect of your life better. Like,
100%.
You can't say that about many things. If you do this better, literally everything else will be tangibly better.
Yes.
Like, sleep has a direct tie to the quality of everything else in your life. And so if it comes easily to you, great, you're lucky. If not, trial and error. Find what works for you, find what doesn't. I think Eric, definitely is right that getting on a schedule of some sort, obviously something that works with your life and your needs, but getting on a regular sleep schedule so that your body doesn't need an alarm so much. It just naturally knows when it's time to fall asleep and when to wake up is much healthier for you as opposed to just sleeping when you can. And I'd be curious to hear people's like tips. Like maybe someone's like, I play 45 minutes of Club Penguin before bed and that helps me fall asleep. Whatever. Like whatever folks do out there.
If it works for you. I don't think Club Penguin's a thing anymore, but
This is just a fun anecdote, but did you see, this is probably a year or two ago, that Club Penguin, there was like an esport or like a challenge of how fast can you get banned from Club Penguin? And people were like speed running, getting their account banned on Club Penguin. And it was like 45 seconds. Like you get in, you make your character, you go out into the lobby and you say as many curse words as you can. And like people were speed running it. It was the funniest thing.
That's hilarious.
But, yeah. Small wonder that Club Penguin got shut down. Not sure why that happened. It's strange.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Definitely a mystery.
Folks, listen to the podcast in your car or at home or on your pogo stick in the driveway. Are pogo sticks still a thing? Is that real?
I haven't seen one, but I'm sure they are.
Okay. Well, if you are on your pogo stick, let us know. First of all, if they're still real, and second of all, what you're still doing on it, because I'd love to hear. But yeah, let us know. I'd be curious to hear anybody's sleeping tips or tricks that they found works for them at home. Obviously, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. But if you have any thoughts on sleeping, we'd love to hear about it. Reach out to us, comments on the social medias, and all of that. We'd love to hear from you. And remember that this has been the Not Yet Adults podcast. It comes to you every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and all sorts of podcast services. We're also on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Not Yet Adults, as well as on our own subreddit, r/Not Yet Adults, which you should check out if you have the time. If you have even more time, and you know what, let's do this just before bed tonight. Make it part of your ritual. As you're falling asleep, getting in there, you're checking your phone, making sure nothing's on fire. Say to yourself, wait a minute, I have an iPhone. I have the Apple Podcasts app. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to search Not Yet Adults. It's going to be the man with the briefcase with a dinosaur in his tummy. And you're going to click on it and you're going to give us a 5-star rating or 4 stars if you're mean, but we would love 5 stars. It really just takes like 20 or 30 seconds, but it's a huge help to us. It helps us climb those charts on iTunes and helps more people discover our podcast, which is pretty cool because we spend a lot of time on this and we'd love to get a little bit of recognition from all you lovely folks at home. We will be back a week from today talking about something new, something exciting, and we are very much looking forward to it. So thanks for listening. And until next time, this has been Not Yet Adults.
Bye-bye.